Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Fen Talks podcast. On today's episode, we're featuring Susan Wissink, one of our firm's management committee members, as well as a firm director. And we're diving into the topic of the process for hiring an attorney. I think where we should start is maybe just sharing a little bit more about who you are and your background. I know, you wear several hats within our firm. So maybe just clarifying, your role within Fennemore.
Thank you. Yes. As Lindsay said, my name is Susan Wissink. I've been with Fennemore for 25 years, and I practice in the area of general corporate law, mergers and acquisitions. I help companies from the day they have the idea to start a company until the day that they sell their company or purchase another company, and work with them all the way in between. As Lindsay mentioned, I also serve on our firm's 6-member management committee. We are comprised of 3 men and 3 women in various offices. I'm in the Phoenix, Arizona office, and we have attorneys on the management committee and several of other offices as well.
Wonderful. Well, you're one of the go-to resources, someone that, you offer a lot of mentoring to different individuals within our firm and a trusted advisor in the business community. So I thought who better to bring on for this episode to further explain, that process for bringing in or hiring an attorney. So a lot of people in this business world, they experience an event or their business continues to grow and they realize, maybe it's time that I bring in someone that can give me a little bit more straightforward advice and guide me from a legal perspective. So curious, Susan, from your perspective, what would be the first step in that process if you were in the shoes of that business owner, entrepreneur, or et cetera?
My advice to any entrepreneur or someone starting up a business is spend a little bit of money at the front end on good counselors. I recommend hiring an attorney who is a business attorney. Don't just hire your friend who might be a criminal lawyer. Hire someone who knows their way around the business world, and a good CPA and a good financial advisor. If you start your company with those 3 people, you're going to be off to a much better start. I know it's difficult when people are starting companies. They're usually wanting to spend every dime that they have on the company itself and its growth, but it's very important to set it up correctly. I have had a lot of clients that have come to me that didn't come to me or a business lawyer at the beginning, and they didn't set things up correctly, and they run into a roadblock, and we have to redo things that could have been done right in the first place. So I recommend, regardless of the stage of your business, but particularly if you're a startup, just find a good business lawyer, a good CPA, and a good financial advisor to help you navigate the start of your business.
I think those are some really good tips. And I'm not going to lie, I've been involved with a couple of conversations where, business leaders are like, I went to college. My college roommate is an attorney. I'm sure they can figure it out, even though they do family law. Well, I think that's where a lot of us get it wrong. So when we know that we need to find somebody that's more focused in the business space, do you have any tips around finding those individuals? Are there any platforms or technologies or websites that can help individuals with finding the right fit?
Well, there's always Google. I've had clients come to me through a Google search. A lot of my clients come to me through referrals. So if you're an entrepreneur, chances are you're a member of a trade group or trade organization, or you probably have friends who are in similar industries to you. Ask them. They might have someone that they've worked with. Of course, we'd love to have anyone starting a business come to Fennemore and talk to me or one of our attorneys here. But oftentimes you can find a really good referral from your friends, with the caveat that both you and I have both already talked about, that make sure it's someone who knows business law, because it's very important to have someone who understands the tax ramifications and other significant issues that could impact your business going forward.
So once again, putting ourselves in the shoes of the business owner or entrepreneur, reaching out for the very first time, it's a little intimidating, especially if we haven't worked with an attorney before. So if you were that individual, what would you include in that initial outreach to that legal professional?
It's completely appropriate to do a phone call or an email. And don't be surprised if the attorney that you contact asks for some information before they can talk to you. We have ethical rules that prohibit us from representing a client if they're adverse to another client. So oftentimes I will get an email from someone seeking legal advice, and instead of diving right in to their legal issues, I will ask them, could you please tell me the name of your company or your proposed company? Who are your partners, if any? Is there, if you're in a business dispute, who is the party on the other side? And then we can quickly, within usually a couple hours or less, find out if there is indeed a conflict. Typically there's not, but there sometimes are. And then we have to address that, and we can sometimes overcome those hurdles. But don't be discouraged if the conversation doesn't happen until that information is obtained.
So once again, and for those individuals that have not been through this process before, and they're not necessarily familiar with what a conflict is, could you maybe explain that in more detail?
Sure. So if let's say, Lindsay, you and I were going to start a company together, and oftentimes each of us might get our own attorney, or we might together hire an attorney to represent us in forming the company, and then the attorney would represent the company. But let's say that you hired an attorney and I hired an attorney. I would need to provide your name to my attorney so that they made sure that they hadn't worked with you on other matters. Or if you and I were dissolving our partnership, we would need to make sure that neither one of us had been represented by the attorney. So a conflict just simply means, it doesn't necessarily mean it's an adverse issue, it's ugly. It just means that the law firm has represented one of the parties to the matter previously, and under the ethical rules, we cannot represent one party if we can't be adverse to a party if we've previously or currently, if we currently represent them.
Thanks for further explaining that. So let's now run through the scenario. Hey, conflicts check. It comes back clear. We're good to go. What would the next step in that process look like?
Well, the next step would be to set up a consultation, and it can be over Zoom. It can be in person. It can be over the telephone, whatever works best for the client. I'm happy to accommodate any type of meeting that works. And then the attorney will obtain information from the client. Let's say you're forming a new company. We'll want to talk about, what do you want to name your company? And then we'll need to search to make sure that the states in which you operate, that name is available. And then it's very simple to file the documents to form the company, but there's other things that you need to do. So in that first meeting, we'll talk about that. Are you going to have employees? Do you have any intellectual property that you're going to want to protect, such as, are you creating something for which you might need a patent? Do you need to trademark your name or a slogan or something along with your business? So we'll talk about all of that. And then depending on where you want to go, we'll start working on the documents after that first meeting.
So another question we often get is, how are attorney rates determined? And that can be a little intimidating for end users. They're just not really sure what they're walking into and how much it's really going to cost them. So do you mind just explaining a little bit more about what that looks like?
Absolutely. Most attorneys bill on an hourly rate, and we prorate the hours in 6-minute increments, which sounds very strange. That being said, a lot of attorneys, including me, are more than happy to do certain matters on a flat rate, because we understand your business needs and that you don't want to be surprised at the end of a month and find out that your attorney spent way more time doing something than you thought they would. So I would not be intimidated by someone telling you that their rate is a certain number of dollars per hour. Instead, focus on, how much will it cost me to do this? How much will it cost me to form my company and put together the proper agreements to protect me and my partners? And I am always happy to do that on a flat rate. Or I have clients that are larger clients that have me on a monthly retainer to help look at their contracts that come in. And so I think the most important issue for a business owner or entrepreneur to ask is, what is this going to cost me, and not get too worried about the actual hourly rate.
I think something really important that you brought up there is the fact that we create customized approaches to each one of our client situations. So it's not a one size fits all. It's not black and white. It's obviously something in which our attorneys look to work with the end user. So With that kind of reminds me about a lot of businesses that continue to grow or expand. We have, especially in the Phoenix metropolitan, we have had a number of businesses. We've seen it all over the newspaper articles and online about new businesses moving to Arizona, which I think is really cool. But through that, we've had a number of businesses reach out to us because their attorneys that they regularly work with do not have representation here in the Phoenix market. So do you mind explaining a little bit more about what that looks like and how we can help in that respect?
Absolutely. So oftentimes, in fact, I'm working with a potential client right now who is opening up some Arizona operations, and they have their national counsel is in New York, and they asked their counsel for a recommendation in Arizona. And we've been working with them in helping them on Arizona matters. So if you have trusted counsel, if you're moving into the the Phoenix metropolitan area, or you're moving into any state for that matter, and you have a trusted advisor, ask them, because chances are they may have a contact in that state or have the ability to find someone for you in that state. And we are happy to work with counsel. If someone already has their primary legal counsel that they trust, we are happy to help on Arizona matters and not step on toes, and work together as a team so that they can grow their business the best they can and comply with all the local laws and regulations in doing so.
And to further clarify, Susan, Fennemore is a Western region firm. So we, help clients all throughout, the Western region, and there's times in which we go national and or international. But just curious from that perspective, what markets do you feel like you're able to best support or help from your personal perspective?
Well, there's certain ethical rules, and attorneys are licensed in a state or more than one state. So an attorney who's licensed in a state can obviously practice in that state. But if there's a nexus with the client, for instance, I do work all over the country, but I work for clients that have a connection to Arizona, which is where I'm licensed, or California or Colorado. Those are the three states I'm licensed in. A lot of attorneys are licensed in more than one state. So we can help all over. And oftentimes we need to engage local counsel for the very reasons I just mentioned, that there's loopholes and there's laws and regulations that are unique to each state, that it helps to have an expert. So sometimes we will engage local counsel to help us navigate the waters of that particular state.
Wonderful. Well, I'm hopeful this conversation gave individuals a little bit more confidence and made them feel a little bit more comfortable about looking to bring on an attorney to help them through navigating their business processes. So Susan, as we look to wrap up today's conversation, is there anything else that you'd like to leave our audience with?
No, thank you for your time, Lindsay. And I hope that everybody takes my lesson to heart, that you hire a good attorney and a good CPA to get your business started. And if you already are a current business owner or operator, make sure you have someone that you trust that you can call to help you navigate the legal waters that you're bound to go through as your business grows.
Awesome. Well, Susan, thanks again for joining us for this episode of the Fen Talks podcast.
Thank you, Lindsay. Take care.